Hello, this is Alexa Hampton, and today, for 50 or delayed 52 weeks, we are going to talk to Randy Powers um, of J Randall, amazing designer. Wasn't that easy?
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Thank you so much for letting me postpone this because I don't know what I was thinking. We were in the middle of, it was the opening day at Dallas Kips Bay, and I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this.
Like not in the middle of press day.
Yeah, oops. So, Randy, how are you?
Alexa, I'm doing okay. No complaints. Just riding the wave that I think we're all riding, and busy like most of us lucky designers are these days, with everybody wanting to
Good.
focus on home.
Yeah, and how was the past year and a half, generally speaking?
The past year and a half has been completely insane. Our office is like putting in so many hours and working, and Christopher's like on a plane every 15 minutes having to fly somewhere to go, oversee something. So, it's been crazy. I'm ready for the holidays. I'm ready for like a little calm. I'm ready to shut the office down
Yeah.
for a couple of
I
weeks.
mean, in the beginning, did you think, like, oh my God, what the hell is going to happen to me?
Total panic.
That's how I felt.
Total
I
panic.
was like, wow, the sky is falling.
Total panic. Like sat on the sofa, like with my hands covering my face, watching the news and watching the stock market. And I was like, oh my God, it's over. It's over, all this. And then, in a matter of weeks, like the phone starts ringing and it's like, I hate my sofa, give me some
I
curtains.
know. Here we are just catching breath thinking like, thank God I'm alive.
Exactly. Priority. Where's my sofa? How are you?
I'm great. I'm good. Just left your fair state.
I heard you were there
yesterday.
visiting Miss Ellie.
I was there. Oh yeah.
I saw your room. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was a great show house with wonderful people, and it's like decorator camp. You get to meet your peers under these weird circumstances, and you just love them.
It's fun.
And I totally got so many ideas from people that I told them up front I was stealing.
Love that.
Yeah, love that. So back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you from Texas?
Yeah, born and raised Houstonian.
So
Native.
how did you grow up? Were you raised by design-minded people?
I kind of was. Both grandparents, like both grandmothers, like really, really big into it. My mom kind of a little bit, not so much, but it was kind of always real cognizant to me. And I think you probably read it. I was laughing when you were sent that questionnaire that was like, tell us about your childhood room. And I was like, well, I was a Polaroid. I was a Ralph Lauren aficionado. So it looked like Ralph Lauren just threw up all over my room. And, and I guess that's one of the first loves of being an Anglophile like yourself that kind of like, sent me down that path.
I don't think I am an Anglophile. I think I'm a Francophile, and I'm
turning
into a Italophile. But I could be wrong. Like what one thinks about oneself is seldom accurate.
Well, you've got a good sense. I mean, like you've got a nice balance and mix. When I, always take a peek at the work and all that. I was such a disciple and lover of your father, so I think, I'll always have a love of English in my heart.
When I first saw your work, which was several years ago, and it was the work that you did for Andy Singer in Houston, the owner of Visual Comfort, I am not kidding you when I tell you I was blown away. It had David Hicks vibes, monumental, beautiful geometries, but really clean. I love your style. I find it. I'm getting goosebumps. Two things give me goosebumps: decorating and music. But,
I hear that.
I'm a total fan. And where did you study it? How did you start?
You know what? It was totally not a career choice. It was initially initiated. I just kind of had a love for it, and then kind of fell into it. And then I really started more off as being a picker of antiques. And so, I would pick and then, sell to other dealers and, and sell to other decorators and things like that.
And that is an education in and of itself, because you learn all the antique styles and the periods and the details.
Totally.
And the descriptions.
Totally. And so my grandmother on my mother's side was a big shelter magazine reader, like every magazine every month. You know, the stack was this big. And so I would actually just read them a lot. And I think I just became really self-taught and figured out what I liked and what I didn't like and, you know, and what felt right to me. Oh,
in this?
10, you know?
Okay, so
yeah,
you're
like a baby. So I kind of got really into it. And I think it was just always, you know, I mean, I was fortunate. We really had a beautiful house growing up and you know, and nice things. And so that was always get to fun. And my mom would drag me around all the antiques, you know, stores and the antique shows and all that kind of stuff. And so I think I kind of honed my eye a little bit on it. But the first real thing was just having someone come up to me and say, you know, I really love your style. And my dear friend Holly Moore, who you know, Paper City Magazine, published my my first apartment in her in her magazine, and the phone rang off the wall like right after that. I had a woman call who just said, "I just saw, you know, your house and I love it, and will you come talk to me?" And I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm not really a decorator." And she's like, "Oh, yes, you are. You can do this." And so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you were bullied into it. I like that.
Kind of bullied into it for sure. It was fun. You know, it's a great career, as you know. It's a lot of fun to be creative, and it's a lot of fun spending other people's money.
You live vicariously. You live vicariously.
You live vicariously.
When I think of all the houses that we work on that we would die to live in, it's the next best
for
thing.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And, you know, and I think, like, I'm sure, as you know, they become your babies in your own right. So as much as it's your client's house, to me, every house feels something like special to me, like that I love, you know, that we did. So, you know, it's fun to sit back and think about that stuff.
Yeah. So you opened your doors as a consequence of the Paper City article.
I opened my doors as a consequence of the Paper City article. it just kind of, yeah. I officed off my nightstand. Literally.
Yeah. What year was
that was my desk was like the laptop sitting on top of my nightstand, and, like, you know, and of course I'd been to the Decorative Center and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you're frantically like opening accounts and, you know, and doing all of that stuff and, you know, getting legit and all that. But yeah, that's how it all started.
And what year was that?
That would have been 1997.
Okay. So as you were assembling all of these things to create a company,
yep.
What are, besides opening accounts, what are some of the big, you know, master strokes that you were able to do, or even like stupid details that you didn't do and wish you had?
You know, I think kind of getting, you know, I had this little apartment. It was like 835. Well, in New York, that's not so little, but 835 square feet. And it was like my little, you know, chalkboard. And I was constantly moving my furniture around and constantly rearranging, which is something now I don't do at all. I don't move anything. I like everything, you know, exactly where it lands is where it's going to live for the rest of my life. So I think, you know, probably just being a little bit self-taught and really learning the ropes and learning the way to run a business and, you know, taking care of your clients, you know, like you want them to be clients forever. And so that's really kind of the foundation of how I decided to, you know, to build the business and you know, and work on it. And in the beginning, antiques were a huge, heavy part because that's just obviously my background and what I had done.
Right.
And, you know, then I just started to really appreciate, you know, a little, you know, more things and open up my spectrum of thought process. And, you know, and now, you know, we do everything from, you know, as I'm sure you've seen, we do everything from like pretty contemporary to like really traditional, like really traditional. And to me, that's the most fun part of all of it, you know, is not being pigeonholed into a look. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't kind of get stale and you don't feel stale and you don't feel bored. It's not like I wake up one more day and think, oh, I don't ever want to see another French chair again.
Yeah. I do think like there's something slightly cynical about working on cultivating a look that is finished, you know, like it's not going to grow, it's not going to change, it's not going to be the person living in that.
Yeah, it's got to have legs.
gotta have legs. Back to the French chair. So, but I mean, I think being thrust into, I was already working for my father when I took over, so the everything was assembled.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine being thrust into business and having to piece together a machine.
It really was, it was really small at first, and then as like most design jobs happen, word of mouth breeds more clients, then you get more work. And I really didn't even hire another person to work for me for about a good 7 years. I just kind of did everything. And then the job started getting bigger, and it just became really, really necessary to like bring on. And now we've got like a well-oiled machine staff. It's just moving, like all moving parts. I feel like it's I call it the ant mound. Like everybody's like coming and going and doing all other things and at their desk and all that. So it's fun. I love it, and and I feel really blessed to be able to do what I love.
How many people are in your office?
So now we're up to 5, and that's a pretty big staff for us. And oddly, for the volume of work that we do, we have at any given time we have up to 22 projects going on, and so everybody has kind of a delegated task of what they do in the office. So I do design work. Christopher does design work. Jane does design work, and then we've got Diane who's doing her thing, and Vicky who's doing purchasing, and all of that kind of stuff. So, I found that really letting everybody have some creativity, but everybody having a defined role really helps the company run like a company.
Yeah, I'm not always good at that. I have some questions that are good, so I want to ask. I mean, all of them are good. Sorry,
sure.
Anybody has a question. But somebody has asked, how do you decide how contemporary to go or traditional to go with a couple who is new to decorating?
I think I'm a really good read of personality. And with people, and I can kind of sum them up on on our first meeting. I mean, obviously, the way somebody dresses kind of dictates a little bit probably what they're going to end up liking. And then the most valued point is just really listening to what they have to say. So, for as much as they're interviewing me, I'm kind of interviewing them, and it's not like we won't take the job, but it's kind of like I want to hear keywords that are coming out of their mouth that it's going to lead us in a direction. And we ask the standard question, what's your favorite color, and all that kind of stuff. But, for me, architecture really has the biggest thing to do with it. Because, like, if you live in this, like, beautiful Georgian house, I mean, we're probably not going to do some hardcore contemporary interior for you.
Yeah. I think that question is very suited to city living because you're disembodied.
Yeah, totally.
So you've got this cube in the air, and you have to figure where am I going with this? Because you really can go anywhere.
Yeah, and then Texas, I mean, we're all supersized down here, so it's like big houses with land and all that kind of stuff. So it's we get a better feeling rather than you probably just walking into your typical Park Avenue apartment and go what can we do here?
Yeah, definitely. Do you like working? I mean, I would assume you like working on houses more than apartments, but I guess it's everything.
I like them both. I have lived in so many high rises in my city over the years. Actually, that's where my first apartment was in a high rise, and I just have a special fondness still for them. I guess we finished one up about 2 years ago for a really lovely couple who bought possibly the worst apartment I had ever seen in my entire life. I wasn't even sure that we could work on this. I'm like, this is
describe it.
This is Chernobyl. So they bought it from an attorney. It's in a really wonderful building. It is a penthouse, and it has gorgeous views, but it had black granite floors, blue neon crown molding, stars painted on the wall. I mean, every weird.
Who lived there? An 8-year-old?
An attorney. And so the client
the attorney was your client, or the attorney was
my clients were buying this apartment at the time.
Okay.
And so and they were new clients. They weren't even existing clients. So we kind of danced the dance, and we talked about it. And I was kind of like, we can do this. If they're going to let us be open to kind of like fixing this in any way, shape, or form, we can. And the apartment did have good bones. The rooms are huge. So it's probably now one of my favorite projects we ever did. It's just very tailored and very clean, and it does not have black granite floors, and it does not have neon crown molding.
Did you take good before pictures?
There's good before pictures on the internet. I'll DM you.
Yeah, no, you should. If you should post it on your, for anybody who listens to this,
Well,
to go to your feed and
okay. You know what? We'll do that. I'll have Chris post them probably this afternoon. He's on his way to Aspen right now, for a job site meeting tomorrow. But we'll snag some of the befores, and then there's definitely pictures of the apartment on our current Instagram and on my personal Instagram. But it's yeah, it was a real treasure. But I do love high rise. I do love high rise living.
Do you work ever abroad?
We have never done a project outside the country. We are, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we would turn anything, you know, I don't really think I'd ever turn anything down if it was interesting enough. You know, we're working a lot, actually we're working less in Houston than we are kind of all across the country right now. It's kind of odd. But
yeah, I think that's like every 5 years your roster looks different.
Yeah, I mean, we're you know, we're doing a lot in Colorado. We're doing some apartments in Manhattan right now, and Newport, Rhode Island, Mississippi.
There's a huge Texas Newport thing.
There's a huge Texas Newport thing. Yeah, it's yeah, we're invading.
Yeah, totally. Somebody's asking, with Round Top coming up, and the antique show, what are some tips for people who are going to those things to shop well?
You know, I think you really, I stopped doing Round Top a couple of years ago because, one, it just takes up so much time, and there's only really 2 shows that I like to go to, and that are the nicer shows. And so, you know, I think the biggest thing about doing Marburger, Round Top, and all of that is really doing your homework to find the, you know, where you need to be, because it's like Brimfield. It's cutthroat. I mean, people, when I was going, I would literally spend the night in the car in the field the night before so I could be the first person in line. And I would have all of my stickers pre-printed out that said J Randall Powers. And I would go into dealers, and I wouldn't even try to like haggle. I mean, they knew me. So I'd be like, how much is that? Boom, sold, boom, sold, boom, sold. Because you've got to get to the next thing. Or, you know, but I'm a little bit more of a competitive shopper than I am like, you know, strolling around, like looking at all the pretty stuff, because we're buying inventory or buying client things. So I was like, bam, 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 bam. But that came from my years of being a picker too.
So I was about to say, I don't buy anything on spec, because it just makes me nervous. Because then, you know, because I've never had, you know, a situation where that's been our model. So I find it, so I'd be on the losing end of that kind of an event, because I always have to get, like, you know, sign off from the client to buy it.
Oh my God, Alexa, we have warehouses. We have warehouses full. We had probably 5 3-ring binders this wide each that are numerical, that go by year of how much inventory that we're buying in a year. But a lot of it too is that, you know, through this whole entire past 10 years, you know, so many of the really great dealers are not around anymore. And so it's really hard to find, you know, some of the really great stuff. So for me, I just like buy what I love. And, you know, I feel like if I buy what I love, worst case scenario, I have to take it home, which there's stuff everywhere around this house that's, you know, that was eventually for sale at one point in time. And my poor partner, Bill, like come home and like, one day we just want to have a dining room table. It'll be gone. Right. She's like, where's the table? I'm like, sold it. Had to get it. I can't wait 24 weeks. We'll get another one. I move fast when it's for myself. But yeah, if it's not, actually, I always think that the best things I find for clients are things that I originally want for myself, because I have the full 100% enthusiasm for those pieces. Yeah. Like, I would be happy living with them. Yeah. Buy once, cry once is my motto.
Say what?
Buy once, cry once.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've heard Miles Red say that too. And I love that expression.
It's an old Stanley Marcus. It's an old Stanley Marcus saying.
Yeah. So let's pretend I'm a client.
Okay.
And you've asked me, looking for keywords. You have a little bit of information about me. How do you run your project? Like, I start with the furniture plan. I'm assuming you do too. Walk me through your process.
So, first thing, we want to see the space, or if it's a house that's being under construction, we want to see the plans. And then we really want to, get a sense of the scale of the size of the rooms and all of that. Then from there, we'll start with the furniture plan, but really I start with a palette more than anything. Mm-hmm. So, we are very fortunate that we office in the D&D building in Houston. And yeah. So, I'll run the elevator downstairs and I'll just start pulling things that I think feel right for the project. And then we kind of throw a huge pile on the middle of the conference room table and I start weeding through what looks best. So a lot of times, rather than starting with the furniture, I'll actually start with the fabrics or the textiles or the carpet.
Interesting.
And because that's going to dictate to me what I think it needs to go on, and yeah. Then from there, I'll stack all the different things. Like, this is a good chair fabric. I really wouldn't use this for a sofa, or, this is too precious, or this is too fragile, or this is rough and tumble, or whatever. And then I'll start to pull all the different furniture styles, and it usually is upholstery first, and then start stacking those all together. And then from there, it's like fill in the blank. It's like, okay, well, I need a dining table. I know I'm going to need a beautiful chandelier. What looks right with this? And I was doing that actually yesterday afternoon.
I used to hate lighting. I used to hate it.
Don't let Andy Singer hear that.
No, it was visual comfort that totally changed my life.
Yeah.
Because my hatred of lighting preceded my knowledge of visual comfort. Mm-hmm. And I just found it to be a really rough category. And I didn't have, there were like 4 great places in New York. And I thought, it was just really difficult. It was hard to do things original. I didn't want to repeat myself on everything.
Yes.
So visual comfort really changed my life. And now,
really, before visual comfort came along, and obviously this is Alexa and I are plugging our friend Andy Singer here that we do lighting with. But before visual comfort came along, there just really wasn't a lot of resource. It was a handful, and I do think that what they've been able to offer, and I love now that there's so many different designers on board, because everybody's kind of putting their spin on it, and for every kind of project. Gosh, we use your stuff. I use my friend Suzanne Kassler's stuff. We always try to use our stuff. I love Aaron Lauder's stuff. So we just always are kind of like trying to mix it in a little bit. But it's, lighting can be tough, but I think it's gotten so much easier.
It's gotten so much easier. And
yeah.
I worry about the antique industry, but I know of some things coming up in tech that I think are really going to support it, because I think we've been watching them worried about them.
Oh yeah,
because a lot of
hands down.
Community, a lot of them are older. A lot of them don't like the weird processes that are now the norm.
Yeah, no, totally. We went from probably, like, let's say 2007. We went in Houston from probably having like 20 really good shops, some of which I know like Jazz Gundry and Brian Stringer and all that kind of stuff, to like 3. And and since we are a fairly big town, the 4th largest city, we're all vying for the same vendor, the same dealer to get there. It's gone back to that again. It's like now I show up at their truck unloadings and I sneak around in the back. As they lock their door, they're trying to set up, and I'm like wiggling my way through the back door.
You put a tracker on their car.
literally, there's a dealer in town who. She says, like, I don't know what's up with you and your sixth sense that the truck's here, because we don't let anybody know. And I was like, I think they have a truck today,
I feel like that part of our industry is about to be resuscitated.
Yeah, I do too.
And
I do too.
I think there's help on the way, and they're going to get a new lease on life, because we really need them. When everyone was saying to us in the last few years, "Oh, Brown dead," I just thought that was poppycock.
I think so too, and I think part of it is too is that there's a unique quality about having something that's old, because most likely it's not repetitive and you're not going to see it again to some degree. And I think that most of the reproduction lines are very solid and they have beautiful things. And I think that this demand where like everybody can just go buy something immediately, instant gratification, and now with lead times getting like crazy where everything's running 24, 36 weeks. Buying old things kind of feel fresh to me again. Not that I ever stopped.
Yeah, it's interesting that obviously the universe is vast and complicated, but the fact that that phenomenon happened on the heels of everyone declaring antiques dead
Yeah.
is, it's kind of
brown wood.
That's what creates the bell curve.
Yeah.
It's incredible how certain swings precede the opposite swing.
It's the brown wood theory. Like, brown wood was just like dead to the world. You might as well just go take it in the ocean and dump it. And I just never subscribed to that theory. And it is funny now to watch, all of these really talented younger designers who've all been on your 52 weeks for the most part that I know. Are all really gravitating towards that kind of thing again. And, even in pretty contemporary interiors, you're starting to see more of older things kind of, making a comeback and a pop in. So I love it. I think it feels fresh.
What are some of your favorite antique eras?
Oh, probably all the Georges, as I call it. I'm not the biggest fan of Victorian, and I'm not
either, but I feel like some of the most talented designers are able to do Victorian.
John Dickinson did, I mean, one of the greats, like constantly put Victorian things in his interiors, and it looked great.
And my father could, and I'm just like, wow. It's like when I go to a restaurant and if they can cook fish really well, I know it's a great restaurant because I'd much rather have the meat or the pasta or whatever. But if they can eat a piece of fish, taste delicious, then that's a great restaurant. I feel that way about designers with Victorian stuff because it's so not my stop.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like a little much. It's a little exuberant, so to speak. And I do have a tendency to like things a little bit cleaner that are older. But that's really probably the only period that I just don't gravitate towards. For the most part.
Art Nouveau?
Huh? I actually like Art Nouveau.
Is not on my happy list.
I do like some Art Nouveau. I don't really like the, there again, the Belle Époque, so much, but I do like, some aspects of it. But I do struggle a little bit with Victorian.
Yeah. When you travel, does your Anglophilia direct you towards England more than the other places?
I love England so much. And so, I mean, the countryside, the buildings, the architecture, all of it. But no, I like France just as much. I love Italy. Spain is magnificent. So, the only thing that really does happen is usually anywhere I go, I shop.
Right. Ireland. For a person who loves Georgia, Ireland is like.
And Scotland too. I mean, I'll probably be arrested for this, but I snuck the most beautiful porcupine box out of Scotland.
You will be arrested tomorrow.
I'm going to be arrested immediately. I'm going to be arrested immediately. I'm sure the knock, the feds are on my door.
No, I don't think porcupines are. I mean, they shed their spines naturally. No,
yes, but it's still an endangered species. It's in the embargo list. Oh yeah, it's in the embargo list. You cannot bring it in. Okay. And so I literally wrapped all my clothes around this thing and was carrying it around like a sweater, and all that.
I think in the past year, you've just rattled off like the typical Western European canon. Mm-hmm. And I think in the past year with our conversations about diversity and how the focus has been so, obviously Western European, I'm excited about the new exposure I'm getting to styles and countries, whether it's Africa or Asian countries I was familiar with, that aren't, Japanese or Chinese. I'm enjoying like this whole new world that I'm seeing, that I'm being exposed to. And I feel like that's so exciting.
I think we are really living in a global world now, and like there are really no barriers, and so everything is kind of coming and going, and with the internet now, anything is possible. Education has become so much greater of things that you just didn't know about. I mean, I was lying in bed the other night reading and just thinking, what did we do before the internet where you could like pick your phone up and Google something? Before you either didn't know or you
shopping trips.
Yeah, you had to get a book and like read.
That was and that really divided everybody because only the super rich could take these exuberant trips.
Absolutely.
With their decorator.
the grand tour, as we still end up calling it.
Totally.
And it's kind of exciting, because I think we're all becoming so much more open to see things that we've never seen.
Yeah, and there's even among people who are traditionally educated in Eurocentric design, we have a whole new education waiting for us.
Oh yeah,
and that's pretty
grows daily.
To be a grown-up in a field and to be expert in your milieu, like a huge opening and a whole new education waiting for you. That I can't think of anything more exciting.
Yeah, we're for as tumultuous as the world seems right now, with COVID and the pandemic and all of that, it is still an exciting time.
Yeah.
What
are some of the projects you're working on right now that you're really excited about, or that comes to mind? When I'm asked that question, my mind goes blank.
Okay, so I'm really most excited about one that I can kind of tease about, but I can't really talk about it because
it can be vague.
It's a non-disclosure situation that is about to come out in the press probably in the next 30 days. But
you mean an embargo or a non-disclosure?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. But
so when we hear about it, we won't hear who.
No. But we are about to embark on a very vertical project.
Cool.
That the firm is getting to put our own taste level on, and so without going into details.
That's it. Nothing more. We'll keep our ears open for the next month. Tell me about other things.
Let me think. What is this like one of the most exciting that we're doing?
I also think like our business, a lot of us, especially if people perceive us as big in the industry or a big firm or whatever, a lot of the great jobs that we work on are just decorating. We have these huge multi-year jobs, but there are wonderful quick jobs where
the quick jobs are some of my favorite because, like, for instance, we've been working on a house in Louisiana. It seems like it's been an infinity. It's a really big project for our office. It's close to 50,000 square feet, and it's huge. And we've been buying and working with vendors in Europe and trying make sure that this is a really unique project and all that. But it's also exhausting, because we're just constantly going over the same details all the time about it. And it's just so nice to get a phone call from Mrs. So-and-so who says, you know what, I just need my house freshened up. Can you come over here? And I'm like, I'll be there in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think more people need to realize there is no job too small for all of us.
No, I think the small ones
are
sometimes more creative.
Certain situation.
I think some of the really small ones, are like some of the most rewarding. And I think it's because it is fast instant gratification. So you get to see something your work turn into fruition like quickly, as opposed to these, 3-year construction projects where, every Thursday you're having a meeting to talk about doorknobs or grout colors.
Yeah, what do you think about the weekly meeting? I'm not sure it's always necessary. I think it's turned into a thing, and I sometimes think it's sometimes I think it's just theater.
I think it's a lot of theater, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the capability of the builder. So because we do charge for our time in that form of a situation, usually I think the homeowner can get a pretty quick glimpse. We'll actually text in advance and say, do you need to send this, weekly meeting? And they'll go yes or no, and then obviously we're there if we need to be. But, otherwise, we're sitting there with the AC guy, while he's talking about vents, and I'm like,
the AV guy. Oh no.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. The AV people are truly, I shouldn't say the bane of my existence, but it's like talking to a head of cauliflower.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily something we're expert at, which is why they're there, because they're the experts.
Yeah.
But it's so fast moving that it's very hard to even keep your arms around what you just learned.
Yeah.
Because then it changes.
Well, it's like there again, the technology is like all changing so rapidly. Like all I really care about is like, don't put the control switch where I'm going to hang that painting.
Totally. And the answer to that question is the control switch should be lower than you think.
Always.
As close to the casing as possible so that you don't block potential artwork spaces.
Absolutely. It just drives me nuts to see a light switch at 48 inches tall.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in the middle of my
So
face.
bad.
I feel like I'm getting one of those like scanners that's like going to read my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what it'll read? Anger.
Exactly. I feel like you take a hammer, smash it,
Yeah.
and move it down, move it down.
I do think that the one of the easiest mistakes that people make is putting stuff too high up. Either they hang their artwork too high, or their doorknobs are too high, or their light switches are too high. I think
Mirrors too high,
sconces
too high. Like everything needs to be at a human scale.
Yeah. It's got to be keyed into the person, not into the ceiling. What else are other things that we think are like huge takeaways that people forget about that are easy?
You know, I am not the biggest fan of ridiculously tall ceilings. You know, I do like the phrase I just used. I mean, I feel like having that human scale. Like I don't want a 7.5 foot ceiling, but I don't need to have 16. I don't need to have 16-foot tall ceilings either.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, back in the day, I think when a lot of that was happening, it's because there was no air conditioning or heating, and you know, you wanted your heat to rise, so you wanted to get, you know, to the top of the room or the top of the, you know, the house. But you know, I'm real comfortable. I like about between a 10 and a 12-foot ceiling on the high point.
Yeah. I just in the show house there was an inset coffered ceiling. So it wasn't the whole ceiling was coffered. It was one of those silly.
I saw you took that out.
Of blue.
Yeah.
And I got some pushback from people online being like, "Why'd you do that?" Or not too
because
much,
it wasn't a real coffered ceiling.
It wasn't a real coffered ceiling. It was really bizarre. And actually, when I saw it, you know, obviously Kips Bay is a financial commitment, but it's one that we want to do to help the children that it supports and the other local charities like Dwell with Dignity in Dallas. And I was like, what is that about?
It's funny because when I was looking at the pic of your room, you know, when we were talking the other day, and it was like, it almost looked like a ley light. Like, where did it come from? It was just like it looked like molding just appeared out of the sky.
And it also made me think Saturday Night Fever, the dance floor, just everything about it bummed me out. And the fact that all of the vents and the lights were put in that weird perimeter soffit, just like emphasized the soffit. It was just a total bummer.
Yeah, it's like my neon crown molding.
I'll do. You know, they assign you your room and you don't get to choose. So I got assigned that room, and I was like, I just need total buy-in that I can erase the ceiling. Otherwise, I'm going to have a problem. And they said, no, fine.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite movies, some of my favorite lines from one of my favorite movies, Beetlejuice, where the wife says, "If you do not let me gut this house and make it my own, I will go insane and take you with me." That's what that space felt. That's what that space felt like.
We should have T-shirts that we wear to client meetings that say that.
Exactly.
Somebody is asking us that when, for other designers, when do you decide to take on an architect? And this person in particular is working with a lot of interior detailing, paneling, but not necessarily plumbing and those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like obviously working with an architect is the gold standard.
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, we do work with architects, and we have a handful that we are really close with, and so we're very simpatico, and our work all kind of steps on each other's well. A few years ago, we actually brought in our own in-house millworker architect, we did, and what he does basically is millwork, moldings, closets, cabinets, and all of that. And it's funny, I've noticed more of the norm that a lot of architects don't like to mess with that stuff anymore. They just really want to do the structure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, or they miss a lot of detail. You know, that we want a little bit more exuberant and those kind of things. So for that, it's been a really nice thing to have the ability to have the firm have this, and we were actually working on it yesterday afternoon. And, doing these things and going over the ideas and the casing sizes and all of that kind of stuff, because the architecture is fantastic when it's really fantastic, but it's all the other detail that goes into a house that you don't see. the width of the shelf of your bookcases and
Yeah,
the
no.
styles.
I definitely love to be part of that discussion, but there's no, as for engineering and all of those things, I need my architect.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's like, we're not going to wing it, so to speak.
No way. And also, like, we know what we don't know is vast.
Yeah.
But it is great fun when you are working with an architect that you've worked with many times and you just speak each other's language.
Well, especially when they're really good and there's a simpatico relationship going on where like there's mutual respect and they respect you and you respect them. And, it's like, I'll say, I don't step on your toes, or I'll, the client's talking about it. When the client's talking about it, I'll say, well, this is, so-and-so's forte. This is really where he needs to be heard. And, we can certainly make our little impact here, but, we need to go with what he's saying.
I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but are you usually hired first, or is the architect hired first in those scenarios?
Boy, it's been a combination of both.
Yeah, it's both.
One of the craziest jobs that we have done in the past few years is I got a phone call at the office one day from this darling girl, and she was so sweet and complimentary, and she said, I've been following you for a long time. I follow your Instagram. I've seen all your work in magazines, and and my husband and I really want to hire you. And I'm like, that's terrific. Thank you.
Here I am.
This sounds great. And so, we're starting to talk a little bit. And I'm like, well, where's the house? And she says, well, we have it under contract, yada, yada. It's a total gut, but we love the street and we love the house, itself. And I said, that's terrific. I said, well, who is your architect you're going to be working with? And she's like, we don't have one, but we were hoping that you could, could tell us that. And I said, oh, well, I'll give you 3 names that we think are really good. And I said, have you found a builder? And she's like, nope, haven't found that either. We kind of need you to do that too. And I'm like, well, here's 3 names. And I go, let me guess, you don't have a landscape architect either. And she's like, no, yeah.
No, those are important pieces of our Rolodex. Like the critical, like without those relationships, it's really tough.
It is. And, and I think kind of everybody, assembling a team of people that you're so comfortable working with. And in this particular instance, the house turned out so fantastic. And the couple they're really young and they're really cool. We got to do so many things that we probably normally wouldn't get to do on a job as far as being creative. And because we did have our power team, we got to use every single person who was probably, in our top tier choices. It just made for such a nice project. Yeah,
and these people are our friends. We spend time at work that these are the people we're seeing every day.
Yeah, so absolutely.
If you don't love them, and it's so inspirational when you're working with landscape architecture. I'm a total idiot about. I really don't know what I'm talking about. I barely know flower names. I can be like, well, that's pretty, or I can point to a picture, but I'm just a bozo. And especially when it's an area that I'm so dumb about, listening to the inspiration or the things that they're saying that just light the fire. Just it makes our job fun.
Well, totally. And there's that little contrived saying, but I do love it. It's like, teamwork makes the dream work. And when everybody's all signed up on board and everybody's kind of running like a well-oiled ship, it just usually turns out for such a better project.
It's, if you don't mind my asking, you said you charge for your time. Like I charge a fee that and then markup, but in my imagination, the fee represents time spent. But I have to come up with it, and sometimes you spend more time and
no, totally. So the way we work is we do charge a markup on goods and on some services. But when we're initially working with a client who's, let's say, building a house, or we're going to weekly construction meetings, we basically, unless it's just so big that the client says we're going to have to flat fee this, we'll basically say, okay, it's probably this many hours a week, so and so. Otherwise, it's just if we're shopping with you for hardware or marble slabs or whatever,
you're part of every conversation.
Yeah. Where we want to be part, like any good designer wants to be a part of every conversation that's going on with the house, I think. Because you really, that's what you're being hired for, is your talent. But we do charge for those.
I do a flat fee trying to imagine what the based on the overall scope. But I I do. First of all, I hate keeping track of like hours, so that's
That's
part
the
of my motivation.
worst.
But and you know, sometimes you spend a lot of hours doing something really mundane, and then you feel embarrassed to even say how many hours you spent doing it.
Yeah.
Like looking for, you know, trash cans or bath accessories, something really dopey. But there's something really nice about theoretically the flat fee, because then you can say to your client, you know, I'm your team. I'm team you. So
Yeah.
any conversation you want me to have, like, you don't have to look at your watch and stress out. Like, I'm your girl.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I guess for me, every project's a little bit different.
For
And
sure.
so we certainly have done just straight flat fee, you know, jobs on time and things like that, because the projects were just so big that the hours would have gone, you know, way into, you know, the stratosphere.
Yeah.
But you know, we, like I said, we do like to be part of every little detail, like every doorknob, every lock, every hinge, all of that. So, you know, I think part of being fair about that too is, you know, working quickly, knowing what you like, knowing what you don't like. You know, I hate these hardware meetings where like we just sit there and we pull every knob off the shelf and we look at them, and I'm like, nope, that. Here, there's 15 of our favorites. So let's go.
Lee Mindell of Shelton Mindell said once, and I don't know if I was at a talk he was at, or if he told me, I don't know, but he said he went into a meeting and was like, boom, 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 boom. And the client said to him, well, why am I paying you all this money if you can do this in 10 minutes? And he said, because I've just spent 40 years learning how to do it in 10 minutes.
True, exactly. And that's so great.
That's the perfect answer, of course.
Yeah, but that is so true too. It's kind of like, you know, there you go.
Yeah, it took a minute in the beginning. Yeah, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you figure out.
You have to kiss a lot of frogs. And you know, it's kind of interesting too, because you learn through the process, like what works really well, what doesn't work, you know, if something's not a good product down the road, if it breaks, if it's hard to get apart, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think having
the past 2 years has been very tumultuous for businesses. Like a lot have fallen along the wayside.
And, you know, doing all your due diligence, I think, kind of gets all your ducks in a row.
Totally. What's exciting you right now? You know, you are not a maximalist by nature. Is some of the maximalism in the air exciting you, or are you just like, ugh?
No, I am not a maximalist by nature in my business. My house, I mean, can you see behind me?
Not enough. I would like to dive right into the...
It's stuff everywhere. I mean, there's books stacked.
But it's so beautiful looking.
Thank you. This is my library I'm in right now. And I mean,
you've hung those pictures in front of what?
Books.
But that's a window, is it not?
That is. Like, so
and what's the view?
I'm a painting. I'm a collector. And so there is artwork everywhere in this house. I mean, it's like it's wallpaper at this point, and I can't stop, and I don't really sell, and so there's just stuff. We'll have to do a home tour, you know.
Yes.
And I'll show you. We did one with Veranda at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, where I met you outside the front door and walked you through the whole thing. The comments were really great, but it's kind of like, wow, you have a lot of art. I'm like, I got a lot of everything.
Yeah, I hear that. I go through phases. Like I'll go through a phase in a category. Like I'll get really into China, and then 2 years later I'll be like, it's all obsessive compulsive disorder. You know what I think we should do?
Hugely.
I think I've been talking about this a lot for the past couple months, about how when we leave a client's job, it's done. And it's done. But in our houses, it's a hazard because we are always looking. And it's never done. Though you said you like your furniture pieces to stay where you put them, but obviously you're adding in these other things. I think we should do a book, all of us designers, and I think it should be called Can't Stop, Won't Stop.
I love it.
It should be our interiors where we just like,
don't stop. It's so true, because I go back, the house I'm living right now was featured in Architectural Digest in 2010. And I go back and I look at those photos and I'm like, it was so clean. Like there was not stuff everywhere. And now,
but you like it better now, or you like it better then?
I like it both. Yeah, the problem is I like to buy stuff, and so you know, there's and I'm not going to stop buying stuff. And so it's I'm a slight bit of a hoarder when it comes to things that all of a sudden I like.
Can't stop. Stop.
Like I find something I love and I like you, I fixate and obsess. And if it's like there's a something I want to collect, I'm like, I'm constantly collecting. And this is kind of a pseudo funny story. But the other day I was shopping somewhere, and I'm a big fan of Santa Maria Novella, from Florence, the pomegranates that smell.
Yes.
And well, you may not know this, but they are no longer going to import into the United States. They're stopping. They're not going to ship to the United States anymore.
You need to go to Florence more often.
We got to go to Florence more often. It's so I'm kind of like, I got to have every pomegranate. They're not going to make them. Like, I'm never going to stop giving these. So I'm like calling all of these stores. I'm like, do you have 10? I'll take 10. Do you have 15? I'll take 15. Ship them to me now. And so like, these boxes are arriving, and the smell is so outrageously strong that it's like out in the garage, because like my garage now smells like Santa Maria Novella.
I could think of worse things it could smell like.
True.
So silly. Are you doing anything that we all are going to be, well, besides for the non-disclosure thing, which it sounds like we're going to be hearing about in a month, are you doing things that we're going to be able to look at soon? You're working on a new book?
We have been working on a book. So we started really doing the book right before COVID hit. And as you know, from all the books you've done, just getting all the years of photography, and so much of the photography, because I did start, in the 90s, was non-digital, and having all of and dead photographers, and having to go back and like get all that kind of stuff. So when COVID hit, we didn't stop photographing. We kept photographing projects nonstop, but I've kind of stopped working on the book a little bit, just because it's, I'm overwhelmed by the whole process and the thought of it. It's such a time commitment. And we do have a fabulous writer, who signed up, Diane Duran Stakes out of San Francisco.
Oh, I know her.
Yeah, Diane's the best. We're dear friends, and I wouldn't have anybody else write it for me. But it was like, Dee, we got to stop here for a minute. Like, let me just go ahead and let me keep photographing and getting these things here, and then we'll be ready to go before I fly out to California and sit with you in a think tank for 4 days, and we write this thing out. So that will be coming hopefully in the next, I'm hoping, 2 years. So that'll be
good. And I like that you're giving yourself a break, because I do think the most important thing that we do as designers is our day job.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And
all
it's the number one
stuff is amazing, but our day job is our day job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what's paying the office rent. And and I want the book to be a heady book. I don't want it to just be pretty pictures with like a little bit of script. I really want the process and the dialogue that you and I are having going into this whole thing. So it's like Miles Redd's book, The Big Book of Chic, is like one of the best books ever of all time. Yeah. And it's also so thoughtful in the process of how he does all that. And we want to create that type of an environment when we do the book, that someone will really curl up and like sit and read the book.
Dive in.
Yeah. It was like when Rose Tarlow came out with her book, years ago, and Rose and I are friends, and and I read it like it was a novel, because it's not like I just wanted to look at the pretty pictures of all the houses. Yeah. It's like I wanted to know what she was thinking through this whole entire thing. And so anyway, that's coming up. That's exciting stuff.
That is exciting stuff. We're rounding up. Thank you so much for delaying this. I've got 2 more people that I had to delay that I need to speak to, and it's really troubling to me when I can't, because I read the questionnaire on Lex Talks, and it gets me just so excited.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay. Well, all these things.
Stuart Dawson he's cast one little comment. I should probably mention that too. Yeah. Yes, we do have a wallpaper and window covering license with Hartman and Forbes. And we do have a really exciting launch coming out in the spring.
And where can we find it?
Hartman and Forbes in New York is repped by Holly Hunt. No, they're not repped by Holly Hunt. They were repped by Holly Hunt. And now that Holly bought Conrad, they're now at, I'm not exactly sure where they are in New York, but if you Google Hartman and Forbes, post it, please. Yeah. Well, if you Google Hartman and Forbes, it will come up. So it's been a really exciting collaboration. The one we did, they had a spring launch, and it was hugely successful, and we were really excited that. And now we're We are dancing some more licensing. Can't really talk about that either, but we're kind of dancing some more licensing stuff out there too.
Yeah. And I think even if, I was saying this week to other designers, even if you don't have a gig, like a signed deal, like keep designing.
Oh my God.
Keep doing it. Like you'll get it at some point. And if nothing else, you'll have more of a body of work to be able to do.
Oh no, completely. And it's just that whole thing of like, just don't stop doing what you love.
Yeah. And yeah. Well, thank you, Randy. I love you to pieces. I can't wait to see you. I'm sorry I didn't see you in Texas.
I know. Sorry I missed you on this trip, but I'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, you will.
Or New York.
You. Kisses. Bye.
Bye, Alexa.